All right, Matt, we're back again. Some disappointing results from this past weekend, but we will get into that. We are gonna be having Hunter on as a guest later in the pod, so stick around for that, and we'll talk all things UH with him. Basketball. If we have time, maybe some baseball stuff we can get into because that season started as well. But we'll save all that stuff for when we have Hunter on. We got a lot of news actually to talk about. It was a busy week in the NFL. A lot of signings, trades, stuff like that. Not much from the Cowboys, but you know what? We'll get into that first.
Oh
So
gosh, don't remind me.
we'll start with the NFL today, and I guess the big one, or actually there were quite a few big ones going on, but the story throughout the offseason so far has been around Lamar Jackson, right? What are the Ravens gonna do with him? Are they going to give him the contract he wants? Is he going to accept it? Ask for a trade, hold out? And we finally got an answer from the Ravens, at least. So they end up pretty much franchise tagging him, right? More or less. So it was only a $36 million tag, I believe,
Like I think it was 36,
around
32
there.
million
Yeah,
maybe.
because it was
Something
under
pretty
40.
small.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Pretty
the
small, you
exclusive
would.
franchise.
Yeah, small for what you would think former MVP might uh demand there. But if we're being, you know, honest, I don't think anyone knows still what Lamar is gonna do, right? The I think he's still dissatisfied with the contract, and it's gonna get a little dicey for Lamar now because it sounds like, at least what the reports are saying, that not a lot of teams are calling up to go get Lamar, which is crazy to me, right? I don't know if it's the price he's asking, like these owners don't want to pay for that, but former MVP, he's only 26 years old, right? He's a winner. And I mean, the one maybe knock you can make is that he's starting to get banged up, nicked up just a little bit more frequently than he had before. But still, I mean, 26, he still looks great when he plays. I don't really understand what is going on with Lamar Jackson right now, but I think he deserves to be on, you know, a good team and is a playoff caliber team. And I'm just a little, shocked that the Ravens are not willing to pay for Lamar. But what I don't know, Matt.
They don't want to pay Deshaun Watson money. That's literally what it comes down to for you can say an injury prone quarterback. Because we all know Lamar Jackson is not a Patrick Mahomes or you could even say like a Tom Brady. He's gonna kill you from the pocket, right? Lamar Jackson he relies on his legs. That's what makes him special. So with that comes a lot of risk, a lot of vulnerability, and a lot of uncertainty. And that's something that the Ravens don't want on their plate, being stuck with a big contract with an injury prone quarterback. So I kind of understand where they're coming from, but I also see the side that Lamar Jackson is trying to make. Like, I want an MVP. You guys are nothing without me. Look at what you guys did this season without me. You guys barely could score 15, 16 points a game, right? You had Lamar in the playoffs versus the Bengals. I say they win that game with Lamar instead of Tyler Huntley, who by the way was a Pro Bowler, but I don't know if that really means anything anymore. But
We'll say
I
it
just
does.
think okay, Snoop Huntley, congrats. But I just think this for other teams, and I'm gonna specifically name one team, and we're gonna talk about them later in the pod too. But the Panthers. The Panthers to me are the team that kind of doesn't make sense here. So we're going to talk about this, but they make a big trade, a couple days ago. They give up 2 first round picks. Now with the Ravens giving up, or excuse me, tagging Lamar with that exclusive franchise deal, that means that if another team signs Lamar and the Ravens don't want to match him, they get 2 first-round picks. So you're telling me if you're Carolina, you just gave up multiple picks, you wouldn't want Lamar Jackson on your team versus a rookie quarterback that's not proven? I don't know. That's just something that I would think about because at least I know I'm getting an MVP player in Lamar Jackson. Maybe Bryce Young, maybe one of these younger quarterbacks might be great, but the key word is they might be great. You don't know. So it shocks me that teams like Carolina, Atlanta, desperately needing quarterbacks aren't trying to make a bigger push for Lamar. But I also see this as a very genius and shrewd move by the Ravens because they're basically telling Lamar, who does not have an agent, he's doing all this negotiation on his own. And they're basically telling him, go test the market, go see what you got out there because we don't think anyone's going to bite. And right now, I think the Ravens are slowly winning that war a little bit, kind of tugging them back slowly, but a very unusual contract situation that I think it's going to be really ugly this year. Let's be honest. I don't think any team's going to sign Lamar. I don't know what you think, but I think he's going to have to accept that franchise deal this year.
I think he might, and because I heard he would have been guaranteed pretty good money, just not the Deshaun Watson type of contract, right? And I think it's hard when you look, if I'm Lamar Jackson and you see what Deshaun Watson, how he played this year, even though it was limited, he wasn't with the team and whatnot, but didn't look great, right? Didn't look like the same Deshaun Watson of old. And if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm saying, hey, I've won an MVP. You can look at my winning percentage when I play games. It's like the top 5 winning percentage of all time, right? And I deserve to get paid for my services. But at the same time, I do understand the Ravens, it's a business. And I think they're, like you said, they're winning the war right now. And I think Lamar is just going to have to come down and either play a prove it um, kind of contract, like an Aaron Judge type of situation, or settle for one of the longer term contracts, which is still really good money. I think it would be like top 3 quarterback money anyway. It might not be the Mahomes is like esque deal, but it would still be really good money. And I don't know. I think sometimes you got to think, if right you take that gamble, it doesn't work out, then there's no way you can ask for any more, right? At least you get the guaranteed money. But I mean, it's hard for us. It's easy for us to say, right? Like, Lamar, just go take the 150 whatever $1 million guaranteed money. But we're not the ones actually out there going through what he does on the field. But I'm typically more pro player, especially in the NFL. So that's why I really don't have a problem with Lamar going out and trying to get this money. I'm just worried, like, for his, future, that doing this doesn't, you know, tarnish or hurt his future at all. That's the only thing I would say to Lamar. But seems like he's confident and willing to negotiate himself. So hey, props to him. And if he can live with whatever the outcome is, from the situation, I think that's all you can do if you're Lamar Jackson. So yeah, let's get to what you brought up earlier though, with the whole um Carolina situation, because I am right there with you. You know, so they gave up a haul, or the Chicago Bears pretty much got a haul, I should say, for that number 1 pick. Shout out to the Houston Texans, by the way, for
Lovey Smith.
shout out to Lovey Smith for getting, the Chicago Bears that pick. But if I'm the Chicago Bears, I am ecstatic about this because me and you, Matt, we're already big Justin Fields fans before the season started. We, like, even before this breakout year he had, we were talking about, we both saw the potential in him from his rookie year alone. So we were always big Justin Fields believers. After this year, it was a little bit easier to solidify that. And now you commit to him being the guy, you can build around him, build an offense around him with those picks. and they get DJ Moore as well, like an already proven
That's the
wide receiver
steal
one.
for the trade.
Um, he's put up numbers in Carolina with Sam Darnold and PJ Walker last year as well. All these quarterbacks coming in and out, and he's still, hovering around that 1,000 yard mark every year of his career. So a proven guy, proven number one, actually. And, we saw kind of the same situation where Carolina, well, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, Matt, but, Dallas, right, with Amari Cooper, did not see the value in keeping around a proven wide receiver one guy, letting him go for a fifth round pick, right? And, you know, in this situation, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of the same situation here. I don't know why they're moving off such a proven guy already. I mean, he's maybe not as good as Amari, right? But definitely a guy that is reliable. And now Justin Fields can add that to, his arsenal of weapons. And they use these picks to build around him. I think Chicago's putting themselves in a really good position for the future. And, to top it off, they've been pretty active in the free agent market as well, getting some big signings on both sides of the ball. So I kind of like what's happening in Chicago, and with all the turmoil around Aaron Rodgers, you know, Minnesota is always going to be up in there. That division is kind of there for the taking. We know Detroit's, going to be there probably now, a little bit more of a contender. But hey, if I'm a Chicago Bears fan, kind of like where it's going. And on the flip side, Carolina, like you said, surprised they're not making a move for Lamar Jackson, because it's a two firsts anyway. But like you said, a proven guy versus a project, or even, you know, I don't think any of these quarterbacks, besides maybe Anthony Richardson, has the physical tool upside of a Lamar Jackson, right? I mean, maybe Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, more accurate in the pocket type of thing, but Lamar is like the ideal quarterback. He's like the right-handed Michael Vick on the field. So, um, I do like the move though if they believe in the thing is they have Frank Reich. He's a big quarterback developer, right? He's known for that, and so I think I get putting the trust in him, but that was a lot to give up. So they can't miss with that first pick.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it with the analysis. I think the Bears fleeced them. But how did the Panthers not get like some kind of pick off of that? Like you get the number one, maybe you get like a third or fourth round pick in return. I don't know, just something, another pick. I just think they just didn't get enough back. And the Bears, they're sitting pretty with obviously the pick swap this year and next year's first round pick. I'm pretty sure we could safely say that right now Carolina, even with the first pick, and they're gonna get, I'm assuming, a rookie quarterback, probably not going to be one of the greatest teams either. So the Bears might get a top 5 pick in next year's draft, and that they might have a good record too. They're getting that Carolina pick, so they are sitting pretty. But I think the DJ Moore trade, or the DJ Moore addition in the trade, is what makes this trade just wow to me for the Bears. So this is huge because you have Darnell Mooney, a guy that you were really high on for fantasy purposes, but I
Didn't
think
pan
he's still
out.
a solid receiver.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Well, maybe not a number one. Maybe he's just not a number one, but I do think he's got potential to be maybe a quality number two for sure. I think a solid number three. They also have Chase Claypool, right? A guy who we know has the talent. Maybe he's not a number one, but we saw what he had kind of done in Pittsburgh with Deontay and Juju, right? He can kind of play a complementary role. So I think with DJ Moore, kind of, he's the wide receiver one now. Takes a lot of pressure off the other guys too. And you also have Cole Clement, maybe he's not Travis Kelce, but a solid tight end in this league. I don't think anyone would really complain about that. So, kind of putting all these pieces together, Justin Fields has got some things going here with his skill position. So I think Chicago did a very nice job on that. And obviously they're going to add a lot more with their draft picks. But on the flip side, if I'm a Panthers fan, I'm a little worried because I'm hearing a lot of rumors of different names, and for some reason, it's not Bryce Young. It just, I truly just don't understand. I'm a huge Bryce Young fan. I think everybody can kind of realize that, but how are they not considering him? I hear a lot of talk about CJ Stroud, who's, I think he's got the physical tools more than Bryce Young. And to be honest, I wouldn't be upset with that pick. But if they take Anthony Richardson, that to me is like, you're going to get fired if you're a front office guy and this guy doesn't turn out to be the dude. Like, he needs to be Lamar Jackson at worst, or else Patrick Mahomes esque. Because look at what you're giving up, and you're not going to be able to get anything to build around him. You traded away your wide receiver one. You have no picks or high draft picks the next 2 years. So if you take a project in Anthony Richardson, what is he going to do? You're leaving him with nothing. So I'm just a little concerned with what Carolina is doing. It's a it's a very risky move to me, and I'm not comfortable with that at all, especially with the guys that they're considering taking with that first pick.
Well, we'll have to see how it all pans out. Maybe Frank Reich is the ultimate QB whisperer, and we'll figure out whoever they draft. But sounds like it's not going to be Bryce Young. I don't know.
You're right. He had Carson Wentz. He's such a great guy with the
Okay,
quarterbacks.
but think about it, Matt. He turned Carson Wentz into an MVP. After Carson Wentz did not have Frank Reich, how did Carson Wentz's career turn out? Like really, right? Think
He
about
had
that.
Frank Wright in Indianapolis.
Okay, but and he had a good season. That
No,
was
he didn't.
that
Actually, you're
was
right. He did.
he had a good regular season. Didn't couldn't put it together when it mattered those last two games, but had a
That's the
pretty
one.
okay, right? But I'm just speaking of in terms of a coach doing his job to develop a quarterback, right? You saw the MVP Carson Wentz after Frank Reich. It, the rest is your favorite player on the other team. So I that is one thing I'll have to say, and which is why I think they're gonna take Anthony Richardson. I don't know. I just think they're gonna do it. He just likes the big quarterbacks, Andrew Luck, Carson Wentz. That's just what I think. Anyway, we got a bunch of other trades to get to, so we'll get to some of them now. Staying in the NFC East, the Giants get Daniel Jones and tag Saquon Barkley. Great for the Giants that they get to tag Saquon. He does have an injury history. As good as he is when he does play, it's now what I believe his going into his fifth year in the league now, and we all know the story of running backs. It's just kind of inevitable how their careers turn out at this point. So I think that's a good move by them. Kind of surprised Saquon, is content with taking that. I would kind of ask for more if I was him, even though, kind of an injury prone history there. But the real shocker to me, Daniel Jones getting the 4 years, $160 million deal. And I I mean, I get it if I'm a Giants front office person. Who else are you gonna really go out and be aggressive with at this point? He's been there, he knows the offense. But I'm still not completely sold on Daniel Jones just yet. He had one great year, Brian Daboll. But at a certain point, it becomes about okay, we have a pretty good guy. It's like a classic Kirk Cousins syndrome, right? Like Kirk, he
It's a
can
good
do
one.
his job and he'll win you games. But can he win you the game? Can he make the play? Will he lead the drive when your team needs it? And I'm not quite sold on Daniel Jones yet. I like him. I think he played much better this year, and his legs are now a new factor that Dayball kind of unleashed this year. Um, but I'm still not quite sold. And 4 years, $160 million. I think that's probably a little bit too much if I'm the Giants. But I guess they kind of had no choice because Daniel Jones went out and took him to the playoffs. But yeah, I this I wouldn't be a it's not a huge deal to me, this signing.
Yeah, as a Cowboys fan, wouldn't say happy. I was hoping they lost Saquon, but Daniel Jones, not a guy that scares me at all. And I think the funny thing is this contract, the 4 years, 160 mil. I think that's the exact same amount that Dak Prescott is making. Same amount of years, same amount of money. So I don't know. Maybe at the end of this contract, I might want Daniel Jones because right now I'm, kind of having a falling out with my quarterback. We're not on good terms, so
I
we're trying to
can't
work it
believe you
out.
just said that. You'd rather have Dan. You might want Daniel Jones. That's crazy.
Honestly, I don't know. Like with the way Dayball kind of developed him this year, unleashing him, trying to make him more of a game manager, but also kind of, using him like Josh Allen in terms of the legs. So I don't know.
Interesting.
But I gotta say, Daniel Jones, maybe not against the Cowboys, but overall this past year, he did take care of the ball.
He did. That was
He
his big
did.
problem
And
before.
that's what did my guy do? He led the league in turnovers and he missed.
You should have gotten a quarterback guru coach or whatever. That's what your team needed to do. But
My owner just needs to wake up. Like, does he not know that free agency started? Like every
well,
year with this guy.
okay. Speaking of since we're speaking of our teams, my team that is now, I guess, by default the Miami Dolphins have been very active this free agency. And so we'll start with our quarterback, of course. So they picked up Tua's 5th year option. So he's now guaranteed to play through the rest of this year and the following year. I think it's smart for both sides at this point. You know, if Tua had been healthy and played the whole year, get them to the playoffs, his asking price would probably be a little bit higher. I'm assuming, right? But his camp realizes the injury situation going on. Miami understands it as well, but they also saw how productive Tua was, and you can't really deny how productive he was when healthy in this offense. They got Vic Fangio in on the defensive side of the ball, hoping for an improvement there. So I just think that the Tua 5th year option pickup just makes sense. They weren't comfortable paying him the long extension now, but Tua now has 2 years. And I really think if he just balls out this year and can play, let's say even 14, 15 games, like 15, we'll say, let alone the whole season, I think, he'll do pretty well for himself. The other big one we got, Jalen Ramsey. I think, I was not so high on Jalen Ramsey throughout the year. But with the system that Fangio is going to bring in, sounds like going to play a lot more zone. And Jalen Ramsey throughout the year, we were kind of saying whenever we watched him play, he's getting burned and, but, Pro Football Focus graded him as the third best corner in the league, and he still played really well in a zone scheme. So you put him across X, those guys can kind of move, uh, share the burden, I guess, because now the AFC, right? All these tandems of wide receivers. You look at the Bengals, um, for example. Teams are stacking up a receiver now, and now we have two Pro Bowlers, two All Pro guys on the outside. If Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips can stay healthy, that defense is going to be, I think, a problem for people. It just adds another element to worry about for Miami. And, another pretty underrated, but I think big signing is we get Mike White from the Jets to be our backup.
That's a good one.
And I thought Teddy did a pretty good job, but even Teddy in the limited games he played couldn't stay healthy, right? And we had to go with Skylar Thompson in against the Bills, and he did a hell of a job. But I mean, he was a 7th round rookie and kind of looked like it, you know, in that playoff game. Or yeah, sorry, that playoff game. So um, I don't know. I think Mike White has proven that he can be a solid guy, and guys play for him. So I'm guessing he's a pretty good locker room guy. I like the signing. I'm really happy, and we take him away from the Jets. Because who still knows about the quarterback situation? We'll get to that a little bit. But right now, it's Zach Wilson, right? So they have Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco on roster currently. No more Mike White. We take him away. I think that's a huge plus. So I'm really happy of how Miami is approaching free agency so far. Been aggressive, and I don't think we're done. Sounds like some names still floating out there. Jordan Poyer from the Bills, a big one. Looking at sounds like a running back might be out there. Uh, Derrick Henry, they're saying. I don't know how realistic that is. But if I think they're looking, there's a bunch of names floating out there, but I think they're gonna try to get one more middle or inside linebacker, during this free agency period. And I think it's like that's a home run. And if we can get a guard or an offensive lineman as well in the draft, it'll be like a perfect offseason. And I'm not gonna jinx it just yet, but so far I've been really pleased with the Dolphins. So I've been pleased, Matt. Why don't you tell me how you feel about your team with the free agency signings? Because the only signing that has been around the Cowboys has actually been losing a player to the Bills. That's Connor McGovern, I believe. And yeah, I know you liked him, so that must be it. So far, it's only you've only had a loss. There's been no additions at all. Um, I don't know, Matt. What's Jerry waiting for?
You tell me. Do you have his number? Like, can I call him? Like, can I tell him to wake up? Just kind of remind them, like, hey, do you know that the NFL free agents period started today? And a lot of these contenders are already making moves. Kind of seems like a trend every year, but honestly, as a Cowboys fan, you just kind of get used to the pain of free agency. Probably the only good news that I've at least heard some whispers about is Bobby Wagner. They've been in touch with him. I know Seattle is kind of trying to get in touch with him as well for a union, but my wish list, I guess you could say, probably the only thing we have right now is Tony Pollard on the franchise tag, but we we need some splash. We like that's how you win Super Bowls. You can't just rely heavily on the draft or vice versa. You can't just rely and try to buy everyone in free agency, right? You got to have a mix of both. So how we Jerry, I gotta say, for the most part, I think he does a great job drafting, but we gotta get into this other aspect of free agency. That look at what the Eagles did last year, right? They have a core that they drafted: Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Fletcher Cox, all these guys that they drafted, but they had big additions. They got Darius Slay, they got AJ Brown in a trade during free agency. So we needed some of those guys. Or guys that are at that caliber. So hey, Bobby Wagner would be perfect. Would be perfect,
He's
honestly.
gonna be cheap too.
Yeah, I think so too. And he would fit perfectly because his old coach is our DC, who's coming back for another year. So another blessing for us that we get to keep DQ. So I think Bobby Wagner, he could replace Van Der Esch, who's a free agent. So that's a spot that's open. But the key for me is wide receiver. Maybe I'll go back a little bit. The Jalen Ramsey thing, I'll touch on this a little bit. We do need a corner, and I know his asking price and his contract is very big. It's very large. But look at what you gave up. Look at what Miami gave up. A
Hmm.
third round pick for an all pro
A
corner.
third
Was
rounder, and I believe
in his
our
prime.
backup tight end, Hunter Long. So yeah,
Yeah,
he's still
big
only
deal.
28. He's still only 28
Yeah.
years old.
In NFL years, he's right in the prime of his career. He's got a solid, you could say, just based off of age,
Like
3, maybe 4 years of prime football. So, and he's under, you only have him for 2 years. So I don't know. You can just take him for 2 years and cut your losses after. So Jerry, like, what is a third round pick gonna do? You really think we're gonna draft a third round pick that's gonna be as good as Jalen Ramsey? I don't think so. Like, what? I don't get it. I'm speechless. I truly am. I don't know why we wouldn't even make an offer. Like if they're okay, Miami gets a third. Maybe the Rams are trying to play hardball, whatnot. Give up a second. I'm sure the Rams would have took a second round pick and a tight end. We got a lot of tight ends. We can give them Hendershot or Ferguson. I would. But that's Jerry. But let's go to the receiving part because this is what we desperately need. Because we all realize that in the NFL, you need skill position players to win on the offensive side of the ball. And what did we do last offseason? We traded away our number one receiver for a 5th-round pick, and we haven't recovered since. So I'm looking at guys, D-Hop. That one's a little bit of a stretch because of the money. But the guy that I'm going to look at least, and Jerry is at least kind of talking to him, is Odell. Now is the time you go back to Odell. You don't have to give up draft picks. Let's see where he's at. You got to go to bidding war with him. I don't think teams are going to plunge too big with the injury history. So I'm trying to target Odell Beckham Jr. and Bobby Wagner. That's the 2 guys I would say you got to get those guys back. I'm not even going to talk about the guys that we need to resign that were on the team last year. Like, we need to add pieces that weren't on our team last year in free agency. That's how we're going to make a splash in free agency. And I'm not too worried about Connor McGovern, to be honest. He's a solid piece. I liked him personally. He's better than the other Connor that we lost. I will say that.
Hey,
2
Connor
years
Williams
ago.
was a stud this year, man.
Guess what? I don't care. He was bad with my team, so I don't care. I don't care. I wish him luck, but I don't care. But yeah, I think we replace him with a better year 2 of Tyler Smith. Tyron Smith, I hope, will come back and be healthy somewhat. We got Zach Martin, Terrence Steele. I think we'll get him back this year. I know we have the 10-year on him, but we got pieces at the line. And Biotish, our center, made the Pro Bowl. So we got some guys up front. So we can add, I think, in the draft in that aspect. But Odell, Bobby Wagner, that's the 2 guys I'm targeting if I'm Jerry.
All right. Well, we'll just have to wait and see, as usual, on Mr. Jones. Wait and see. Um, there's been plenty of other action, and we'll kind of wrap up this segment here with the other big news. So go a little quicker. Javon Hargrave goes to the 49ers. 4 years, $84 million, $40 million guaranteed. I think pretty deserved. He was a
Solid pick.
standout
Yeah.
player for them this past year. The 49ers, I mean, the rich get richer kind of at this point. They're still looking for, I think, a quarterback on the other side of the ball. But, I mean, the defense was already a top defense in the league. Now you add Javon Hargraves. Yeah.
And they take him away from the rival or a contender in Philadelphia. So very smart move.
And with how weak the NFC is going to be looking, at least just, quarterbacks relative to the AFC, right? All the, defensive pieces are going to start to matter. But since we'll stick with the 49ers, they pick up Sam Darnold 1 year. Kind of interesting. I would love to hear what Micah has to say about that. But I don't know.
He's not happy. He doesn't like Sam Darnold.
So is Sam Darnold the stopgap guy? Is he a backup guy?
He's got to be the backup. They got Purdy and Trey Lance.
So Purdy is out is not playing this year, right?
No, he's coming back, I think.
Oh, he is? I thought they said he's out for the year.
I thought he was coming back for like camp.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay.
I think so.
Because I thought,
and even regardless, they still have Trey Lance. I think you're gonna play him regardless because you drafted him.
And it's interesting because I not been hearing good things coming out about Trey Lance, right? Even going back to last year, but they're kind of not stuck with him, but they're gonna roll with Trey Lance. Sam Darnold, I think could be a solid guy for a couple games. We know he has good potential. And the Shanahan system, I think, is a big benefit. If you learn that system pretty well, you can thrive, as we've seen.
But I think that's a good pickup for the Niners, honestly, because look at their quarterbacks. Look how decimated they were with injuries. So even if he's your 3rd-string quarterback, I would take him as a 3rd-string quarterback. A solid guy who can win you a game or two for sure.
Yep. or what else? Patrick Peterson goes to the Steelers. Pretty solid move. I think, he's a veteran guy.
Defensive guy.
Yep, you're gonna like playing under Mike Tomlin. I think he'll fit into that role really well there, in Pittsburgh. And then the other two I wanted to get to. So Austin Eckler, I thought this was a big one. He requested a
Yeah.
trade from the Chargers. Um, I'm assuming the Chargers don't want to pay him because he is always kind of hurt, always kind of questionable, injured. But when he does play, he produces. He's like the touchdown machine, right at the goal line, and that's what you want your running backs to do. He's not the biggest guy, but he gets it done, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield, right? Kind of the top fantasy player the past 2 years, right? So he's going to produce stats wise, and I would not be surprised. Miami might keep their eye on this one because I think Eckler fits the role of Mike McDaniel's offense. A lot of motion, can catch the ball out of the backfield. They throw to their backs a lot. So this is a dream scenario if I'm Miami. You take them away from the Chargers, right? Who's already one of the AFC rival contenders, and you put him into the system, and if he can stay healthy, I'm just saying Miami. Chris Greer, I know you're already looking into it, but I'd be pretty aggressive with that one. But yeah, big loss, I think, if you lose Austin Eckler, if you're the Chargers, because I mean the other running backs, they just don't produce quite as well as him. So it's not really a system thing. I think it's a Austin Eckler is that dude kind of thing. And I don't know. That one was kind of
Hey,
surprising.
maybe if Eckler gets traded, they're going to need a running back, and Kellen Moore is the OC. So maybe they need Zeke.
All right, that's more of a
I'm
stretch than
gonna
what I
I'm gonna
said.
throw that one out there.
That's
If
more of a
Eckler gets
stretch than what
traded,
I was
sounds like the
hinting at.
Chargers need a running back, and we got one.
But yeah, I think Miami's gonna need one because the last one we're gonna talk about, and it's still not decided. But the rumors and the smoke is all around Aaron Rodgers going to New York, going to the Jets, and I'm kind of just assuming it's happening for now. Just gonna wait for when that news comes out. I wouldn't be surprised if he does end up going, but I must say that maybe this is cocky. Maybe I'm a little cocky for saying this, but as good as the Jets defense was, and it is Aaron Rodgers, I'm still not I'm not as scared as I think I was once before of Aaron Rodgers. He's not quite the Brady like type of striking fear into you. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is still that dude, but I think Miami with their defense and how they can play, um, they played the Packers tough until Tua had a concussion that no one knew about, right? And before it threw three straight picks. So hey, all I'm saying is tell Aaron to come. I think Miami will still be right there in contention and will make the playoffs again. So that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how to feel about that one because I just don't see him and like Robert Saleh, a defensive minded coach, being on the same page. And the Jets, they're a young team, so how is like the locker room gonna feel about Aaron Rodgers, a 40-year-old quarterback, probably gonna demand like I want everything my way. Like how is that gonna work with a young locker room to me? So I'm a little skeptical if I'm the Jets, looking at the locker room and the coaching fit, but it's not even official. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll see, but it's all right. I'm not scared of anyone anymore. Okay. Well, that was a good round of football. It was a busy, busy week. We'll go ahead and get to our interview with Hunter coming up. We're going to talk a lot of UH sports, so that'll be fun. Then we'll round up with some other stuff. So stick around, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we were supposed to be done with our football segment already and getting to Hunter's interview, but we are. We're recording our interview with Hunter on the 14th. And so we got some breaking news today, and the Fanatic just couldn't wait a whole week to talk about it. I was teasing him in the first half, as you heard, because Dolphins didn't do anything, right? Of course, some big trades happened today for them, and now he wants to talk all about it. So since he didn't get to talk about his team too much, I'll give him the floor, but pretty much to sum it up today, the Cowboys traded a fifth round pick, this year's fifth round pick for Stephon Gilmore, the All Pro Pro Bowl corner, formerly in New England and most recently the Indianapolis Colts. He's now going to be playing across of Trayvon Diggs. And they also were able to re-sign a couple key free agents, right? Donovan Wilson and Leighton Vander Esch, who I think you were surprised kind of re-signed. You were expecting him to walk. So I don't know. Maybe this hurts the whole Bobby Wagner situation, but I'll let you get into that. Um, the one guy you did lose though, Noah Brown, went to the Texans. He was kind of Cooper Rush's guy. Matt, is this a sign of things to come? Lose Noah Brown, does that mean Cooper's out the door as well? I won't try to bring your mood down too much,
Oh,
but
don't try to kill my excitement today, buddy. I mean, I'm on cloud nine right now today. Let me have a good day.
all right. So let's get into it. How are you feeling after today's round of free agency?
Thank you for asking because I feel great. Do you know that? I feel great. You were roasting me, and I was even roasting Jerry. I said, "Can somebody wake him up? Because do you know that all these other teams are signing free agents?" And lo and behold, maybe
Yeah,
Jerry
so
listened to the podcast.
I didn't even
I
put
don't
out the
know.
pod yet. That's impossible.
But I don't know. Maybe we sent it to him secretly.
Yeah, that's what I do
But
actually, Matt. You're right.
but yeah, we're in contact with Jerry Jones. But I'm really really excited about this Stephon Gilmore trade. Obviously, we already know the reputation that he has. He's an All-Pro corner, a former Defensive Player of the Year. But look at what we gave up: a fifth round compensatory pick. So that's you could say a late fifth round pick. And for a guy who's not costing a lot on the cap, I think it's less than 10 million. So very manageable contract at the age of, I think he's 31, 32. So a guy who's at the end of his prime by age, but based off of the Pro Football Focus stats, still playing at an elite corner level, maybe not defensive player of the year level, but top 10. Yeah, I think so. And we're not even asking him to be that. He doesn't even have to be that good because we already have our top corner, our first team all pro corner in Trayvon Diggs. So this is this is perfect to me. And I think he fits the mode of Dan Quinn's, cover one defense. A guy who can play in coverage and zone, has great ball skills. And to me, he's a little different from Trayvon Diggs because Diggs, the way that he plays, it's a lot of feast or famine. He's gonna get big plays, with interceptions, jumping routes, but he's gonna get burned every once in a while. That's just Trayvon Diggs. But this guy, Stephon Gilmore, he's a lockdown corner and just so happens to have great ball skills. So he's not gonna be getting burned, you know, on go routes or double moves. Like if you're gonna beat Stephon Gilmore, you got to go over the top of him, moss him, but you're not gonna get 4 or 5 steps off this guy. There's no way. And this is perfect for what they need. We were decimated with cornerback injuries. We lost Anthony Brown mid-season. That was a huge loss, and obviously that was you know a woe that we were facing in the playoffs. But you basically replacing Anthony Brown for Stephon Gilmore, and you got Deron Bland coming back for year 2 in the slot, and you have Jordan Lewis coming back from an injury, who was our starting slot corner, but probably is going to slide to, backup duties to Deron Bland. So you got 4 solid corners right now on your roster, and Nashawn Wright. You got Israel Mukwamu, who's kind of a hybrid defensive player. He was a corner in college alongside J.C. Horn. He can play safety. So I like the pieces now. Stephon Gilmore really kind of stabilizes that secondary. And obviously, you mentioned Donovan Wilson being back is huge. Dan Quinn likes to play 3 safety looks with the cover run, and Wilson's more of a physical thumper, stopping the run, laying out guys in the middle of the field. So I like those signings. I like those signings. 3 years, 24 million for Wilson is a steal to me. And honestly, Leighton Vander Esch, I probably am gonna have to give up hopes on Bobby. As much as I really want him, I don't see Jerry plunging there. But to get Vander Esch back, obviously a huge win. I think, health is always an issue with him, but when he's on the field, he makes an impact. And he's definitely our best run stopping linebacker. And we all know how bad Dallas was against the run last season. And to have him in the middle, anchoring the run, that's what we need. And it's a bargain to me. 2 years for 11 mil. That's a steal to me for a former first round pick. So I like the pieces that we have. Obviously, Noah Brown. Yeah, it's Cooper Rush's guy, but Cooper Rush can work at anyone. He'll make it work. Still got CD, but obviously we talked about this earlier. My wish list was Bobby Wagner. Gonna have to cross that off, but we can still address one more position, and that's wide receiver. Odell is still on the table, but after kind of thinking about it, but I kind of want to be greedy now that I'm kind of riding high on this Gilmore trade. Let's go for D Hop. Let's go big. You can land D Hop and Stephon Gilmore in an offseason. I don't care if you give up a first round pick. D Hop is the dude. And he's going to be wide receiver 2 to me, pushing CD Lamb, but you already know CD Lamb is going to be a wide receiver 1. So I'm still looking for Jerry to make that one more splash move. That would be an excellent offseason, but off to a great start after a rough first day. But I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely a good day for the Cowboys. Um, didn't overpay, I think. Stephon Gilmore for a fifth rounder. Not quite the same effect as the Amari for a fifth rounder, to me, but hey, you still get a good player, I think. He got kind of disrespected a little bit in New England, I think. He was kind of upset about that. I think he can still play at a pretty high level. And yeah, I don't think the Cowboys are done, but hey, I think even if you don't manage to land Odell or D Hop, there's a decent amount of receivers in this draft. Obviously, not one like as strong as it's been the past several years, I think. But I think there are definitely some receivers to look at in this draft as well for your Cowboys. But before we wrap up the football talk, get to our interview with Hunter, a couple other big signings and trades today. So Darren Waller traded to the New York Giants, right? And this is also off the heels, right, of the Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Raiders. So, Devontae Adams still there in Vegas, but now Darren Waller's gone over to the Giants. You don't seem too concerned about this, Matt. Um, I don't know. I think this is a good move for the Giants, right? Um, Daniel Jones, let's be honest, he didn't get a ton of help this year from his skill position players. Kenny Galladay obviously was a disappointment there. And you look at guys like Sterling Shepard, just could not stay healthy, was able to produce when he was playing, but couldn't stay healthy. Darius Slayton battled injuries as well. So it was really kind of a Saquon show. And, we saw a lot of guys. Kadarius Toney left. Uh, wasn't working with a ton of guys. So I'm kind of interested to see how this works out. And hey, I think it'd be a good safety valve for Daniel Jones. I think if Darren Waller can stay healthy, I think this is a really good pickup because he has speed. He's one of those faster hybrid tight ends now, and I think he's gonna get a lot of usage up in New York. But I don't know. You don't seem too concerned about this one.
Yeah, I mean, I like Darren Waller. The problem with him is you mentioned it, his health. When he's on the field, he's a difference maker. But do I see Darren Waller having the same effect that he did in Vegas? I don't think so. And I think that's in part due to the quarterback play. Now, when Waller was at his best, that was obviously with Derek Carr, but that was before Devontae, and when the Raiders had absolutely no one. This was before Josh Jacobs kind of, you know, took over that really alpha running back role. Like he was just a target hog Like Derek Carr, it was like Rodgers and Devontae. Like every time he dropped back, he's just looking for Waller. And I truly don't think Daniel Jones is that type of quarterback. He's a guy who's going to spread the ball around, just take whoever is open. And let me tell you, we're not going to leave Darren Waller open. So we're gonna have guys that can match up. Donovan Wilson that we just signed back, Jaron Curse match up just fine to me with Darren Waller. But honestly, looking at it from a Cowboys fan's perspective and being positive on that, Waller almost reminds me now going to the Giants. It's like Evan Ingram when he was drafted, a guy who had the size, had a lot of promise, but known for drops here and there. Waller, not the greatest sometimes when it comes to hands. And most importantly, a guy who just doesn't stay on the field because of injury. So I'm looking at that where it's like, okay, we've kind of seen this type of tight end before. So we know how to defend against it. So that's kind of the reasoning why I'm not too worried about this trade. Because I think we've seen this before from the Giants, scheme wise.
Yeah, and the real tragedy of the whole Darren Waller thing is he just got married to Kelsey Plum,
In
who
Vegas.
is, the reigning world champion, Las Vegas Aces point guard. So yeah, just really unfortunate there for Darren Waller. But it is what it is. That's professional sports for you, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, before we finish up, last few ones. Matt Ryan got cut from the Colts. The experiment failed. Uh, just a lot of quarterbacks going in and out of Indy on 1 year pit stops. It seems like 1 to 2 year pit stops. And yeah, I mean the offense just Matt Ryan did not look comfortable from day one, right? And he was a vet, expected to kind of lead this emerging Colts team to deep into the playoffs. If we're being honest, this was not a rebuild year at all by any means at the beginning of the year. They were looking to go really deep. And, me and like a lot of people had them going really deep with Matt Ryan, right?
Mhm.
Because of the talent they had on both sides of the ball. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor struggled this year. The defense wasn't quite up to what it had played like the previous year. And so ended up sacking everything. Uh, Sounds like they're going to draft a quarterback in this draft. I would imagine maybe they get, pick up one of the remaining free agents as a same kind of stopgap situation here. But I guess we'll have to see. I don't imagine Indianapolis being very good this year. But hey, maybe they'll prove me wrong. You know, anything can happen. And then last one, Eagles re-signed James Bradbury. I'm sure you are not too happy about that one because he had a pretty good year this past season for the Eagles and gave a lot of teams, a lot of trouble on the outside. And him or Slay against CD, and I now you really hope you get a receiver that can match up with those two corners in Philadelphia. So Matt, I know that was a kind of disappointing one for you, but hey, competition only makes you better, right? Like that's what you
Hey,
want. You want your rivals to be good, right? You don't want to just run over them all the time, right?
okay, what person in their right mind would ever say that? You're out of your mind.
But you need good competition in the regular season so that when it's the playoffs, your team is tested and ready. Because that's really the time to win, right? If you walk through the regular season, uh, you haven't learned anything. You're gonna get bounced in the first round. No adversity. Seen that countless times happen to teams, right? So, uh, this is actually a good thing. You just don't know it yet. All right. Uh, so
Hey, if
don't.
it, I will say, if that means Darius Slay is traded, I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but at running back at least, okay. Since we talked about your team, my team has been very active. The Miami Dolphins re-signed Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Sounds like we're going with the same trio of running backs as last season. I think Miles Gaskin is not getting re-signed, so there goes kind of my. Nah, I wasn't too big on the Derrick Henry, but the Miles Sanders. I know Tony Pollard and Saquon got signed. I think those are the two guys they were really after. And once those guys
Oh,
got tagged,
out of your
I'm just saying
mind.
they were that was definitely the ideal situation, but those guys got tagged. They liked how Mostert and Wilson produced this year. I liked what they did, in that scheme as well. It's the Miami 49ers, as we know. So I'm excited. I'm excited uh that we're solidifying our positions up here, just waiting for the Jordan Poyer news now. Hopefully that comes pretty soon because I mean, you look at our secondary now. If we get Jordan Poyer paired with Javon Holland and Xavier Howard and now Jalen Ramsey, that's a scary secondary for teams right there. So, we get Poyer and then we get one or two guys uh kind of in our linebacker core. Man, that's a defense to be reckoned with right there. So, other than that, Matt, any other NFL news you want to talk about? You're so excited to talk about. Just trying to
No,
think.
I'm happy. I'm just happy today. I explained why I'm happy, so I'll leave it at that. We can get
Also,
on the show.
you're happy. Taylor Heineke is out of your division now, so that's one less kind of gritty, late game winning quarterback you have to worry about. He's went on down to Atlanta, so
Well, technically, we beat Taylor Heineke, so I'm not really worried about him. We technically lost to Sam Howell, who's still on the roster. So, yet again, he was playing Dak Prescott, so it's not saying much, but I'll leave it at that.
okay.
Taylor Heineke, good luck to you, man.
Yeah. Good luck
You
down
won't
in
be missed.
Atlanta. That yeah. Um anyway, that was a good last minute football session. But now let's get to what everyone's really here for. And that's for our guest Hunter. So yeah, we'll get to our interview with Hunter. Stick around and then we have a little bit more to talk about after that. Alrighty. Well, finally have another guest on the show. It's been a minute, I feel like. Been like running low on guests, but gotta bring in our UH consultant since the basketball season's over. So Hunter, thanks again for coming on, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I guess we got some unfortunate news to talk about. So I guess we'll just start with the Fullerton game. So Hunter, you're actually there. First of all, how was it like actually being up there for the tournament and stuff?
Yeah, it was it was a first time experience for me. So it was a good experience. Got to see teams in postseason live, which is which something you don't get to see every single day, or every year actually. But it's again unfortunate, as you mentioned, that Hawaii did not advance, or for the men's at least. But I did get to see the women's championship game, and they got the title. So congrats to Laura Beeman and the Rainbow Wahine for winning that. But yeah, speaking of the Fullerton game, they had a great start. I think they had like a 9-2 lead, and then of course they had their scoring droughts, which they had all season long. And you would have figured that coach would have, or the players even, would have figured that out, but it still persisted throughout the the quarterfinal game with Fullerton, and it just led to their loss in overtime. And although it was a good experience, of course, we do wish that they had won all three games and play next week. But it is what it is, and looking forward to next season.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. So I guess speaking of the game, we can kind of run through the game itself. So we started off hot, right? Our defense, I thought we played really good defense like for most of the game actually. Especially early, like every shot was contested and we're doing a really good job of just like pressuring the ball and stuff like that. But the foul trouble and turnovers like killed us. It was just like um every time we build a little bit of momentum, like we turn the ball over or like commit a foul. And um there I think Fullerton was like one of the better like free throw shooting teams, right? In the conference as well. So I think that kind of hurt us a little bit. But we were up at the half. I was like, okay, we got a chance. And then I guess it's kind of been, you could say, the story of the season, right? Cold slump, second half kind of collapse, I guess, and weren't able to pull it off. So I guess we'll get down, towards the end of the game there. I thought it was gonna be like the Samuta game, right? Because he was like heating up, he was hitting his shots, he was being really aggressive, and then all of a sudden, like just went away from him. I was like trying to figure out what was going on, because he was like hitting all his shots, his mid range jumper. I still don't like how it looks, like his jumper, how it looks, but like it goes in, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, okay, why are we going away from him? But and then obviously we get to the end of the game, close game. So I'm just curious, Hunter. So the shot clock violation that got UH the ball back, um, at least on TV, it looked pretty close. Like on the replays they were showing there, how did it look? Because it was pretty. I thought we got pretty fortunate with that one. I don't know.
I couldn't really tell, but I was sitting on the front row, and so the ref monitors where they were looking at and reviewing the play was right in front of me, and
Oh, that's pretty
to
cool.
my eye, it looked like a shot clock violation, and I was constantly yelling to the ref, "That's a shot clock violation!" And
Oh,
Hawaii
so
has the
that was
ball.
all you
And
that helped sway
I
the.
might have some kind of persuasion on the refs, but the refs saw it or they heard me or whatever it may be. Hawaii got the ball back, and Coleman hit that shot. So,
Oh man.
but yeah, it did look like a shot clock violation, from what I had seen on the monitor.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Now, hopefully, UH will give you credit. And hopefully they'll get you like season courtside tickets right behind the refs there, so you help factor in some of these calls at home, right? So we'll
Yes, definitely.
petition for that, definitely. But yeah, I guess, and then the Coleman shot, right? Matt has been preaching this pretty much all season, right? But you know, he has felt like Coleman's been our best offensive player all year, pretty much. And when push comes to shove, as good as Javon, I guess, has been, for late game scenarios this season, has always been, now we got to get Coleman a touch, we got to get him the ball. Lo and behold, right, he hits the clutch shot, and that's like the I always think that's the biggest pressure shot like in basketball. It's a shot to tie going into overtime, right?
Yeah.
um you just need to make it just to give yourself 5 more minutes for a chance to keep playing. And he hits a big shot. I was going nuts. I'm sure I heard the Hawaii crowd traveled pretty well, so Reno must have been going pretty nuts. But yeah, I was excited. I was like, okay, maybe this is exactly what we need, right?
Yeah,
Sure
at that
enough.
point there was momentum, and I thought Hawaii would have, um, you know, got the W. But there was that one pivotal three that Fullerton hit in overtime that tied the game, and that kind of turned the tables there towards Fullerton's way, and ultimately lead to their victory. But yeah, Hawaii had many opportunities, and the lack of offensive success in overtime and as well as all season long, it just killed their season.
Yeah. Um, okay, I'm just curious. So since you were in that arena, Jovan attacks the rim, right? Gets fouled, has a chance again, right? Free throws coming up, just like what happened several games ago with Kamaka at the line, right? Chance, what, 2-3 seconds left. So he misses the first one. It's kind of like, all right, well, now we have to, force a miss. And so he misses the second one. And at least on TV, it seemed like an eternity where the Cal State Fullerton player was like holding the ball and no one fouled. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I was like, screw. I was like, why are we not fouling? But I don't know. Maybe it was like, since we're on TV, it's different when it was live. I was just curious, like, what you thought about that as well.
yeah. I'm not too sure why they didn't foul. I think they just gave up, or whatever it may be. There was 3.5 seconds left, three point something on the clock, and still would have at least 2.8 seconds if they had fouled immediately. You know, given if Fullerton missed both free throws or just made one on one end, you have two dribbles to get up half court and have a decent shot of tying the game or possibly winning. I'm not too sure what happened. Yeah, there was a long pause, even in person, as you mentioned, what you saw on TV. It seemed like a while before that buzzer went off and when Fullerton got the rebound. So I'm not too sure what happened. Maybe the players just kind of give up hope, but
That
you
was
hate to see that happen.
pretty sad. I think
Yeah.
like it was such a hard fought game. Like right, your season comes down to it, and maybe they thought the buzzer was gonna go off sooner. I'm not too sure, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty sad to see because it's March, right? How many times have we seen it's March, full court, like 3/4, half court shots that go in during March, and to not even give themselves a chance, I was just like, oh man, that's a pretty sad thing to see. But yeah, season's done. Matt, I don't know. Did you have any comments on the game you wanted to chip in before we get into kind of the season review?
Yeah, I want to ask you, Hunter. Let's stick with this last play. So obviously, Greg mentioned I'm a big, I think you know this too. Obviously, a big advocate for Noah Coleman getting the big shots in big game situations. So, what did you think about that last play by Ganot? Really telling Javon, take the ball at the top, and you're just gonna drive to the paint, either get a layup, get a foul, get an and one. Like, do you think that was the right call and for the right player as well?
This is for the overtime
The
situation. Yeah.
overtime.
With I think Ganot was sticking with his guns. From what he saw with Javon in the Diamond Head Classic championship game, and even in the late game situation against Texas A&M Commerce, where Javon hit both potential game winning or one potential game winning and the actual game winner against SMU in the Diamond Head Classic, but I think he was sticking with his instinct with Javon as the clutch guy to make those shots. Um, I don't like that play that was drawn up. I think there's a much
Me
higher
too.
percentage of kicking it out to either Smuta, Noel, or even Kamaka, who's a decent 3-point shooter. But they did shut down Kamaka all night. He wasn't able to get going into the threes, and I think that's what kind of held us back in terms of scoring. But yeah, overall, the last play, I don't like it. It could have been a much different drawn up play that could have potentially, you know, had us playing the next day.
Yeah. I mean, really just unfortunate situation, but I
And I
think
feel like we see this every single year.
We
It's
do because they lose in
unfortunate.
the first round every single year.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Well,
it's been a staple of Iran's tenure so far at Hawaii, with an exception to his first year, um, of which was not his players, was actually Gib Arnold's recruits. Um, and
Exactly.
so I think if we're gonna get to it with recruiting um, eventually, but I think with the recruiting aspect, he gonna needs to hit the portal uh, very hard this off season in order to make a huge impact for Big West, or even to stay competitive in the Big West for next season because of the talent that we're losing.
yeah. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I guess we'll just kind of wrap up that game, and then another thing, 18 turnovers to 4 turnovers,
Yeah.
right? Like, can't be having it. Just giving them more possessions. Uh, and I thought we played really good. Like, our defense, I thought was pretty good for the most part. Obviously, that guy Max Jones was just killing us down the stretch, but I thought for the most part, we did a pretty good job. But it is what it is. That's enough of that game. We can get to kind of the whole season recap here. So, first question for you, Hunter, I guess. Um, season is come and gone, fifth seed, first round bounce again. But how do you kind of take this season as a whole for UH?
Definitely has its ups and downs. One up being it was a 20-win season, 22 to be exact. And you don't see much of those seasons being put together with 20 plus wins. However, if you're playing devil's advocate, uh, people are saying because of the 20 wins, they had a weak strength of schedule, playing cupcake teams in the non-conference schedule. So you can pick and choose how you want to look at it, but I think that is a positive. Looking on the other side, there are many close games where Hawaii should have won, but lack of offensive execution led to those losses that could have ultimately led to a 1 seed potentially in the Big West tournament. Looking at close losses to Santa Barbara at home, close losses to Fullerton at home, and that's just a few. I think those 2 games combined, they lost within like 3 points total. And so if you take those 2 wins, it could have looked a lot different for Hawaii in the postseason seeding tournament. So, you know, if you want to compete in the Big West, they're gonna have to pull those out, especially when, you're at your home court. You have to win all home games, regardless, especially in conference. And so Hawaii needs to work on that. Looking forward to the off season, and into next season as well. And hopefully, if we can piece everything together, Eran and his coaching staff can put together a complete season, and we'll be marching next March.
Yeah, that'd be great to go dancing again. I feel like it's been a long time since that 2016 team.
It's been since our high school senior year was the last time they went.
We're all working now. That's how old we are. That's how long it's been.
High school, man. We've been out of college for like 2-3 years now. Well, anyway, yeah. So I guess we'll get to some of the stuff about Eran Ganot, right? I just want to talk about. Well, I've been kind of preaching this all season, on the pod anyway. I just couldn't understand, the games that I've watched, and especially when it comes down to the late game, last 5 minutes of regulation, overtime, whatever it may be. But the offense just seems to stall, and I couldn't understand, is it like our system that we play or the plays that we choose to run late in games? Is it a team thing where everyone kind of wants to be the hero? Because I've been kind of saying it's kind of like a curse, right? When you have so many different guys that are talented and can be the guy, it's like you don't ever really have a true, one option late in the game. And I know it had been Javon, for most of the year, and he had hit a couple big shots, but there are games where he's just cold and need other guys to step up. But I'm just kind of curious on what your take is on kind of just our offense and the struggles, and why you think we go through these cold stretches in pivotal situations.
Yeah, I think it has to do a mixture of uh, Eran Ganot's play style, offensive play style, as well as the plays itself. And so Iran's typical Iran offense is set plays, right? Half court tempo, not really pushing it in transition. And so I think a lot of that, when it comes to defenses picking up on those schemes, it can tend to lead to a lack of offense success for Hawaii. And we've seen that multiple times throughout the year, and at times cost us games. But there's also times where, more in the later half of the season, where Hawaii kind of picked it up on transition, started running and pushing the offense aggressively, and it had shown success. And so Iran had seen that. I think they kind of pushed it more towards the Big West tournament, and the last few games of the home season, the homestand. But I think the offense, half court set, and the play calls are what leads to the stalled offensives, really.
Got it. Matt, you want to say anything
I
on the
think
offense?
I think Hunter pretty much nailed it. And for me, I'm a big advocate of playing at pace, and especially when you have a chance for a fast break bucket, a 3-on-2, a 2-on-1, like that's something you have to expose when you have that mismatch. And I think UH, for the most part, they don't do a really good job of doing that. And that's Ganot's style. He likes to play half court, run his offensive plays and system. But, I don't think that's how you win games. You can't do that for 40 minutes. You're going to have to take 10 points in transition, getting 5 layups. Like, that's just how basketball is. It's a game of possession, couple possessions. So they need to do that much better. And to me, that starts with your point guard. Your point guard sets the tempo on the court. It's Ganot, yeah, he's the coach, but I don't know. To me, the quarterback on the court is the point guard. And Javon, I know he had a great season, but he's not the greatest when it comes to playing with pace. He's a guy who, he'll push, but he's going to get stuck right at the top of the key and then kick it out. Or he'll push to half court and then let everybody catch up when you have a chance for maybe even a one-on-one, right? Take your chances with that. But to me, that's kind of the thing that frustrates me the most with Ganot and the way that our point guard play has been really throughout the past tenure with Ganot, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Just looking at other Big West teams, UCSB, Irvine, Fullerton, they all have good guard plays. And they're aggressive as well. And they really tend to pick on our smaller guards and Javon, Justice Jackson, and even Noel is like, let's say, 6'1", but there are bigger guards in the Big West than what he has, and that kind of like gets our downfall, our guard play. So I do think that Javon did improve this season, his junior season, significantly compared to his sophomore year. But again, there's always much to improve on with, reading the floor, the tempo, and knowing when to, be more aggressive and when to hold back. And so I think if Javon figures that out for next season, we'll be in store for hopefully a better season for sure.
Yeah, can definitely hope for that. We'll see how it actually turns out. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up somewhere in the 3 to 6 seed again. Just knowing how it's been. I mean, until I see it for myself, right? But who knows? I'll try to remain optimistic for the rest of this pod. But before we get on to next season, Eran Ganot has been around for a while now. We've kind of seen, the product that his teams have produced, and it's getting around that time where it's like, okay, we've been a good team, under him. We've finished, fairly high in the regular season, but just haven't been able to get over the hump, and kind of make it all the way back to the tournament. And like you said, they weren't his players, right? So I don't know. Do you think it's time to start hitting the panic button with Eran Ganot, or do you think maybe it's just something, we're so close and he just needs to make a few adjustments? Maybe it's in recruiting, style of play, something like that, or I don't know. What is kind of your take on the coaching situation?
I think Eran is a good coach, but it just depends on the new athletic director who is chosen. I think Eran's first 2 years with the new AD is very important for how his future at the University of Hawaii will look like. If it's continued to show that Hawaii's one and done in the Big West tournament, I don't see Eran not staying or having a contract extension for much longer. I think he has up until like 2024, 25. But if it continues to have these short postseason tournaments, it's not going to look good for him at all, and he will be on the hot seat, and that's for sure.
Matt, you want to chip in on this one?
I mean, Hunter is just nailing it. I mean, we're like two peas in a pod when it comes to UH basketball, I feel like. But how can you keep the same product going forward for the amount of time that we've had? Because if you look at any other program, if they did the exact same thing, guys would be losing their jobs. you'd be making changes, but there just seems to be no change. I don't know what it is about UH. They're just afraid of change. In not just what you call basketball, but you can look at baseball, for example. Mike Trapasso was the coach for seems like forever, and we were always stuck in mediocrity, right? You can even say football to some degree, but
Yeah.
we're always hanging on to our coaches too long, and it's like we need to have that ability to pull the plug when you have the body of work. Again, I hate to pull it back, but it's like Dallas. Dak Prescott, he's been our quarterback for 7 years. I already know what I'm going to get with him. So we got to make a change. That's what I'm saying. it's the same thing. We already know what we're going to get with Ganot. And he's had enough time to build the program the way that he's wanted to build it. Because he started with Gibbs players, and maybe he should have just had Gibb as a recruiter. Because obviously that's the only way he can win is with other guys recruiting for him. So if Ganot continues down this path, I would say even after next year, possibly. I truly cannot see how the new AD can even wait 2 years, to your point, Hunter. I would say next year. If it's another one and done year, that would be enough for me if I'm the athletic director.
That could very well happen. And considering Hawaii basketball in the Big West Conference, you look at the venues, facilities that we have compared to the other schools. Good
point right here.
Other schools like Fullerton, Irvine, they play in large high school gymnasiums with a capacity of maximum 5,000, and majority of the other schools averaging around 1,000 per game, if not less. And so, considering all of those factors, Hawaii should be dominating the Big West year after year, and it's not been that way at all. For whatever reason, maybe be coaching, I'm not too sure what it is, but Hawaii should be at the top of the conference and be going to the tournament every few years or so, with the facilities that we have, the crowds that we draw, our community buy-in. It's not clicking for whatever reason. And so we need to figure that out. And that's going to be an important task for the new AD that comes in to see, what's important. And do we want to, be in the middle of the pack for the Big West? And that's not right.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's a great point, by the way. I hadn't even really thought about that. But yeah, that's a good point. And I think, us being around Hawaii sports for pretty much our whole lives, we kind of understand if you're not one of the loyal season ticket holders, right? How do you get people from Hawaii to come out to the games? It's when the teams are good, right? If they're winning, they, other than maybe let's say men's and women's volleyball, right? For the most part, if our team is good, football, basketball, even baseball, like people will come out to play. But when we go through these cold stretches, or we're kind of mediocre kind of team, it's kind of hard to put people in stands. So, yeah, hopefully, we got some good to come in the foreseeable future. But before we get to next season, just want to get your both your takes, I guess. One player that was kind of either a surprise or you thought overperformed your expectations from the beginning of the year, and then one player that kind of underperformed or maybe a little bit of a disappointment. Just kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
You want to go first, Matt, or?
You're the guest. I'll give you the floor first.
Okay. I'll go with two players who I thought had a great season. First is Kamaka Hepa, the senior. I thought Kamaka had a good last season with Hawaii. Shot the ball well. He created his own shot, surprisingly. And he gave Hawaii a few big games this season, and he was somewhat consistent. And the other player that I have in mind is Javon. As I mentioned before, Javon had a breakout. I know me and Matt and Matt's dad didn't like Javon as much as we do now at the beginning of the season because of we have our reasons, but he did show
That's
up.
classified.
Um, he did show up at the Diamond Classic and continued to stay hot throughout the entire way for majority of the season, being consistent and having being the point guard for Hawaii. So I do give credit to those two players. And there's other players as well, like Samuto, who had a great year. Um, who else was there? Bernardo, who had his ups and downs. And then the player that I guess was most or had the least or disappointed season would be that's kind of hard.
So many to choose from. That's why.
If I had to choose a starter, I would probably say Bernardo, even though I said that he has ups and downs because he was not consistent at all this season. He would have a good stretch of games for 1 point, and then the next 4 games just non-existent. Whether because he's in foul trouble or he's missing his shots. So I would give that title to Bernardo. I was hoping to have a more dominant junior season from him, but hopefully next year he'll be able to provide that spark as a returner.
All right. Matt, you want to get
All
yours
right.
really
I like
quick?
that. I like that. Yeah, so for you could say best player this year. Maybe not statistically, but definitely a guy who improved from his first year. And I would say Beyond Riley was a shocker for me, especially coming off of last year. I really didn't see much from him. A guy who had the size, but just really didn't have, the basketball instincts. Couldn't really shoot last year, but obviously he's not a great shooter this year. But I thought he improved drastically, in terms of being able to hit an open shot, because that's huge. Because the defense is going to leave him open, and if he can hit a standing three, that's really all you need from Beyond. And he gives you the hustle plays. He improved much better this year with free throw shooting. So I was really pleased with the way that he blossomed in his sophomore year. And I really do think he's going to continue to get better going into next season. But my most disappointing player, probably a shocker in this one, but I would have to say Noel Coleman. I think obviously last year he was the man, kind of broke out in last year's Diamond Head Classic. But this year, I think there's just something off about him. Like he didn't have that swagger to me, you know, looking for a shot all the time. He was very passive at times. Even through the Big West season, maybe the 2/3 of the season, he was just kind of cold. Like just didn't have that it factor to me. And I know he had a couple games where he hit clutch shots against Fullerton, but I was pretty disappointed in the very I guess you could say like roller coaster season that he had, because it started fast, it goes down, has a nice game, then he plays bad for another 4 games. So the inconsistency was key for me in Coleman, because if he was steady, I think we would have been a much better team record wise. So I would probably have to say Coleman.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wasn't thinking about Coleman at all because I drew a blank. But yeah, I was expecting more of Coleman from this season as well, and he did have a hot start as you mentioned. But then it just went downhill from there, and I'm not too sure if it was just confidence because he's a good shooter. I wouldn't mind if he took 10 threes per game because eventually he'll start to catch on. And as we saw in the last few games of the season, Noel was starting to pick up a little bit, having like double digit scoring games for the last 2 games of the season. So I was expecting more. I'm not too sure on his status of the return for next season. I do know that he is an older player. I think he's about 23 or 24, so he might go overseas. But it'll also be good for him to come back to kind of build his um, reputation or to build his skills overall for before he goes overseas to play.
Yeah, that's a good point. And since I guess you brought up next season, uh, I don't know, expectations. We got hopefully a lot of guys coming back. I would hope. You never know now with how the transfer portal is, NIL, everything like that. So obviously the two key seniors we lose, right? Kamaka and Samuta. Um, that's gonna be tough. Two of our starting five going out, but we still got hopefully Javon, Noel, Bernardo, right? Stick around, and I don't know. I'm just curious. Who are you? I guess looking to next season, and maybe stepping up that's on the current roster, and kind of hoping to fill some of the voids that those two are going to be leaving.
More sec.
More Seth.
More
Yes.
sec.
Crowd pleaser.
Yep.
More sec needs to have a huge off season. He has a lot to work on, but he has a lot to work with. He's long, and as we've seen in the games, he alters the opponent's shots just because of how long he is, and it causes bad shots or bad misses, and he gets the rebounds. So I'm looking to see more Sec um, dominate next season in Big West and for years to come. But he's one player that I'm looking forward to. Another interesting player, and so far the only commitment for the next season is Yale transfer Matthew Cotton. He is a 6'5" guard. Um, he, I believe, has just 1 year left. But as Iran's recruits or transfer recruits, he was injured all last year, out with a shoulder injury. So I'm not too sure how that will play out, considering Ryan Rapp this season, and so we'll see. Hopefully that Matthew Cotton can help fill the void of Noel if he's gone, and partially of Kamaka's shooting from 3 pointers. So yeah, looking forward to see what Matthew Cotton can provide. But yeah, we'll hopefully we can get more recruits because we'll for sure need them to fill Samuta's and Kamaka's shoes.
Um, Definitely looking forward to next season at this point. But Matt, I don't know. Is there anyone you're looking forward to really trying to blossom next season? I know Justin Jackson's your guy, so I was just
Oh
gonna
yeah,
assume.
you took the words out of my mouth. That's if he stays though. I will say if he stays.
Yeah.
But I'm looking staying on the bigs, but hopefully Harry Ruliadev can take a step. I see the talent in him. I think he just needs to bulk up a little bit, honestly. It seems at times he was just outmatched physically and especially defensively. He was very slow on his rotations. So hopefully, with a full off season and some weight training, I expect some big things from him, at least some improvement. Kind of like a Beyond Riley leap to me. That's what I'm looking for from Harry this year or next season.
Yeah. I was just gonna go with Morsek because I mean, like you said,
He's
he's
the crowd
the
pleaser.
crowd pleaser, and after that Irvine game, we really saw like his potential, right? What he can do. I don't know. I think that'd be a great addition if he can play up to his potential. Hopefully, yeah, get him developed this offseason. And yeah. I mean, hey, predictions, anyone want to throw out a prediction right now? I say third seed next year, just because I don't think we can get first or second, but I'll just say third. I'll be optimistic. I'm gonna go with the 3 seed.
I'll go with the 4 seed. I think Hawaii can get a 4 seed. I don't know, just based off of being optimistic.
I think Hawaii gets a 6 seed and another first round exit. I'm gonna just
Okay.
stick with the
Well, that's
trend
not
here.
very optimistic, Matt. Come on.
But I'm gonna be realistic. They are losing, I would say, a bunch of guys, and especially if Coleman leaves. We got to be a little realistic here.
All
But
right.
they'll make the tournament, at least the Big West tournament.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Santa Barbara, because I do know they did lose the Norris guy, Miles Norris. They'll lose um Josh Pierre Louis, and a few other starters as well. So they're gonna have to rebuild as well. And we'll see what happens. And I'm not too sure how strong the Bagels will be, but Hawaii hopefully can keep up with the top of the half.
Yeah, I think we will. But on that note, it was a good segment, Hunter. Again, thank you for coming on, man. Always appreciate it. Uh, Baseball's coming up, so hopefully we can get you back on for some baseball talk. But other than that, yeah, we'll get to some of our other segments here. And hey, let's go Wahine, man. We got a chance. Maybe we pull off the upset. You never know, right? It's March. Crazier things have happened. But Hunter, appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, man.
All right, thank you.
All right, Matt. So finished up our little talk with Hunter. Um, so got to talk some UH sports there. But let's go back to some of the other news from this week. Start with the NBA. We're, like we said, coming down that home stretch. The West still pretty tight, but good news for my Lakers. We'll get to that. Another note though. So while LeBron has been out, for going on, this is his second week now. Another big injury happened for my, I guess, title favorite after the All-Star break, and that's the Phoenix Suns. So they lose Kevin Durant to a pregame ankle tweak. I guess there wasn't even anything crazy going on. He rolls his ankle in warm-ups, and now he's out for 2 to 3 weeks. So the Suns, you know, gave up a lot, right? Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, uh, Jay
The
Crowder
picks.
to get Kevin Durant. And I must say, when he was playing, it did not seem fair at all, right? Um, him with Book, I mean, it's just pick your poison at that point. Who Either one of those guys is willing to take the shot, and doesn't seem like ego is going to be an issue here, just like it was. I would say for when Kevin Durant was in Golden State, he has no problem sharing the ball, but he knows he'll score when he has to. And then he goes down for 2 to 3 weeks. So the Suns, they're still sitting right there, I believe, in fourth place.
Fourth. They're into the
Fourth
fourth seed right
place.
now.
But really, they're the top of that kind of clump of teams from 4 to even 13. It's only a 6 game separation for nine teams now. And my Lakers are, only sitting 4 games back of the 4 seed, who, I mean, kind of crazy how that worked out. But I don't know. I would be a little scared if I'm Phoenix. They lost to Golden State tonight, and looks like Golden State is getting back to their winning ways again. Steph is starting to heat up. Clay had a big night tonight against the Phoenix Suns. And when those two guys come March, come April, if they're rolling on all cylinders, I know they're your title favorites, so you must be pretty happy about that. But I wouldn't want to see the Warriors, if I'm any team in the Western Conference in the first round, I don't want to see the Warriors. They're probably I'm not probably, they are the team with the most championship pedigree over the past 6 years, right? And they've been there, done that 4 times. I don't want to see them. If quite honestly, I'd be a little scared. If Phoenix stays at the 4 seed, Golden State's there at the 5 seed, it might be a little tough. But I think if Kevin Durant, as long as he comes back healthy for the playoffs, it's not going to matter who Phoenix plays. I really think they still can get there. So I'll stick with that.
There's a legit chance that the 4-5 would be Phoenix and Golden State. That's kind of what I'm seeing with the way this season's kind of trending out to be. So that would be, I wouldn't say the most all-time hype first round matchup, but I would say pretty close,
Yeah, and
especially with the history of KD.
it would be a little unfortunate though, like just as a basketball fan, to see that in the first round,
Yeah.
right? Like you want to see that in
Conference
this
finals.
conference finals or even the semis, right? Like, do you really want to see KD, Booker, and Chris Paul against Steph, Clay, Draymond in the first round, and only one of those teams gets to move on? Like, come on, that's a all-time 7-game series type of matchup. So I don't know. That's just a selfishly asking for that. But since we'll stay on the Western Conference for now, Lakers had a pretty good run. They went 3-1, lost the last game, so I guess now they're 3-2. But in the wins, even in the loss, it's they lost to a good Knicks team who's kind of surprising everyone right now. They're hanging around in the East pretty tough. So I'm not too discouraged by the loss, but as long as Anthony Davis shows up, we have a chance. He got kind of locked out from the Knicks. He
was complacent that game.
Yeah, he only scored 15 points. He wasn't the aggressive AD that we've come to, appreciate so much. And, most important stretch of games coming up here. If we get aggressive AD, every game, I like our chances against any team we play. D'Angelo Russell coming back, Jared Vanderbilt, Rui, Dennis Schroeder. All these guys have been playing exceptionally well. Austin Reeves, who I think has been kind of the, even when D'Angelo Russell was out, he was kind of the heart of that Lakers team. He was running the point late in games. Surprisingly, Darvin Ham has a lot of trust in him, and he just kind of makes the emotional pick me up play, whether it's a dunk, steal. He even had an ankle breaker the other day. And I don't know. I really like the chemistry now. The chemistry I feel like is no longer an issue. These guys like playing with each other, and they're all getting more and more comfortable game by game. I would like to see a little more from Malik Beasley. Shooting wise, he's been in a bit of a slump since he joined the Lakers, but if they can keep continuing to play like this, so that when LeBron gets back, the shots get even more open when LeBron's back, right? So I don't know. I'm feeling good, and we are the 9 seed, but really only 2.5 games out from the 6 seed. And I don't know. I think it's possible. I really think we can sneak in as a 6 seed with how Dallas and the Clippers have been kind of inconsistent here down the stretch. I don't know, Matt. I think we can do it. We might avoid the play-in.
Well, I will say if you do get the 6 seed, it's gonna be because of obviously AD needs to show up, but I was really high on Mr. D'Angelo Russell. I think and I said this on a previous pod, that if he plays like how D'Lo can play, he can give you, 20 something a night on efficient scoring, distribute the basketball. He's a solid number 3, obviously with LeBron, but he can be a number 2, I think, at least a temporary number 2 on a team. And he was huge. I know they lost to the Knicks, but he was balling.
Yeah, he had a great
so
game.
With him being back, kind of getting his feet wet a little bit with the injury, I don't know, man. I really like his fit with this Lakers team. I just think he's grown up from obviously his first stint with his antics.
You can tell with the interviews he has.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell.
He's I'm huge on that guy. I like the fit on this team with D'Lo, and I think AD, man, you can't be taking games off. I'm sorry, but you guys should have beat the Knicks because that's on Anthony Davis. Let me tell you that. He's got to. When is it gonna be his team? That's my thing.
I don't think it will.
It's still LeBron's team. LeBron is. I know he's been willing to pass the torch ever since they won the title. He showed AD the way, how to win. Bro, it's gotta be your team now. LeBron is almost 40 years old. You're asking him to carry the team. You're in your prime, age-wise. I just think he's got to be much more consistent. Because if he shows up, he's obviously dominating everyone. So yeah, with him and D'Lo, I think you guys do have a realistic chance to possibly avoid the play-in this year.
Well, I can only hope, Matt. I can only hope.
But you got a lot of teams to jump, so that's the jump part.
That is the scary part. We're coming down the home stretch here. Grizzlies, man, came out today. Ja is now checking in to, I believe it was a rehab or some kind
in
of
Florida. Yeah.
facility in Florida, out indefinitely now with the team. I do like it as an organizational, standpoint, and really just looking out for Ja. I think this is what he needs right now. It is unfortunate if you're the Grizzlies, it's coming at a time like this. You're only 4.5 games out from the first seed, but I think they're looking long term for both looking out for Ja, his career, as well as the organization's future, right? Having one of the marquee guys in the league, you want to have him around for a long time. So it kind of sucks. It has to happen now, not, let's say during the off season, but I think that just shows how serious they are about committing to Ja. And I like it. I hope it works out, and I hope he gets whatever help he needs and it works out for him, because the league could use John Morant, uh, dunking on people, making all these crazy layups for a long time. But as it currently stands, I think the Grizzlies, they're fighting off the Kings, man. These Kings are tough. They're not fading like me, you, and a lot of other people thought they might. From the beginning of the season, they proved us wrong. They're right there in the 3 seed, looking like a top team. They just dropped 100 points on everyone. Like, they what is it? They average like 121 points per game right now. It's like ridiculous. So they are just outscoring everyone. Props to Mike Brown. Props to all those guys there in Sacramento. But yeah, the Grizzlies. It's unfortunate, and you still got guys like Dylan Brooks chirping at Draymond, and he's chirping about Kyrie.
He
and
likes the
Luka.
podcast.
I guess so, and he must just kind of. I think that's his role that he is playing now. Kind of that antagonist, I guess you could say.
He's a
Um,
wannabe Draymond, honestly.
yeah,
I
like
think.
the thing is, with players, and it comes to like talking, right? Like Pat Bev, for example, or even like or maybe not Lance Stevenson to that extent, but when they got into the league, they were kind of had always been like that, right? Dylan Brooks, I mean, yeah, he's been, prone to say stuff here and there, but this year in particular, I feel like it's kind of just skyrocketed, right? Like how much he's talking. Oh yeah, I want to see this guy, or yeah, they're kind of tired. They don't like to play, or we'll see if they actually play. And it's like, okay, where was this 2, 3, 4 years ago, right? Since you've been in the league, and
Mhm.
yeah, that's the only thing I kind of don't like about the whole Dylan Brooks thing. It just makes it seem like he's just doing it all for attention, you know. But who knows? Maybe that's how he is, or maybe the org is telling him, "Hey, we need you to be this guy for us." But yeah, it's a little cheesy or corny
Yeah,
from my point of view. I don't know.
I agree. And I can say that because, I followed him a lot, especially in college. And let me tell you, he was not like this on the Ducks. Not at all. He played hard. He was a hard player and a good player. He was honestly probably the best player on the team, but there wasn't any of this, like, I wouldn't even say trash talking. Like it's a little more personal than that to
It's
me,
like a
I
little. It's like
feel.
he's just disrespecting guys now a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a little, yeah, it's not a typical trash talking type of feel to me. And he wasn't like that at Oregon. I'll say that. So very unusual. And I don't know, a lot of people are saying, "Oh yeah, he only talks when the other team's superstars aren't playing." Like they showed today, Luka and Kyrie were just kind of looking at him like, "All right, we're not even playing." Like imagine when we get on the court, what we're gonna do to you. So yeah, I don't know, but that's just the Grizzlies, man. Their motto is grit and grind. It's always been that way with that organization. So I guess he does fit perfectly with
I
that
guess
team.
so, but even like the old Grizzlies, like Zach Randolph, and Mike Conley, they weren't big trash talkers, but they were like tough, defensive team. I think
Yeah,
Tony Allen
yeah,
probably talked the most trash,
Tony Allen,
but he was
Kobe.
like one of the best defensive guards in the whole league at that point, right? Kobe always talks about how Tony Allen was like one of the toughest guys to go against.
He was the toughest guy for
Yeah,
Kobe.
okay, well, he was the toughest guy. And so, I mean, when Kobe Bryant says about you, I mean, right? So it's like a different type of grit, you know. This team is a little bit more talking. I mean, they still play pretty physical, but it the other team, it was like, we're gonna get in your face, not gonna say anything, but you're gonna feel our presence. And it just doesn't have the same feel, as those Grizzlies teams before. Um, but they're still second in the West. We'll see how the rest of their season turns out. Still got some games to go, so season standings aren't set in stone just yet. We'll have to see how that goes. Okay. I think we'll move off basketball here. Get to, well, I should say get off pro basketball here. Get to some college basketball, because it is March, which means it is time for March Madness. I already got to the Hawaii stuff, so we don't have to talk about that stuff anymore. Except for the women's, right? Because we are moving on in that aspect. But we'll start with the men's. So Selection Sunday rolled around. We got games starting this week. Matt, you said you already made a bracket. I need to work on my bracket. Maybe this is the year, my miracle run year. We'll have to see. But
we say that every year.
Yeah, we say that every year, as so do millions of other people. Um, I just have had a hard time, I guess. Like, I'm not following college basketball per se, but just because of, there's all the upsets and the NIL deals now, there's good players everywhere, right? And there's not really those 1, 2, 3 teams that look unstoppable. Even the 1 seeds, right, don't look like unbeatable this year. And so I think you know a little bit more than me, so I'll just kind of ask you your predictions right now. Um, I guess we can start with the final four, Matt. I'm guessing you already have a bracket. So let's hear your final four of the bracket you're most confident in.
All right, most confident. Let's start in, what region is this? The South. So my first Final Four team, I'm gonna have to stick with Alabama. They are the number 1 overall seed. Brandon Miller, their star freshman. I think him, Marcus Sasser, you could say probably the best players in college basketball. They got a nice senior point guard, Jahan Quinley. They're going to be a tough out, and I know they have the whole allegation thing with Darius Miles and whatnot, but they are a good team, and I know they're mentally prepared to take it all this year. So I think Alabama gets out of the South. We move to the East bracket. Purdue is the number 1 seed, but I do not see them coming out of this bracket because I see the Duke Blue Devils coming out as a 5 seed. I think they were almost disrespected in their seeding. They should have been way higher. They are rolling right now, 9 wins in a row. They just won the ACC tournament. They're clicking on all cylinders. They got a dominant presence inside, which is why I think they're going to be able to handle the size of Purdue with Zach Edey. And like Alabama, I like Jeremy Roche, who is probably the only guy on the team that's played for Coach K that's still there. But having that veteran point guard is huge to me in college basketball. So I like Duke out of the East. In the Midwest, I've always been high on this team, so I'm going to stick with the 1 seed here. I like Houston. Marcus Sasser, he was my preseason, you could say, favorite to be player of the year. One of my preseason Final Four teams, probably the only one that's probably lived up to the hype. thanks to North Carolina stinking it up this year. But I got Houston coming out of the Midwest if they stay healthy. I will say that. And in the West, probably the toughest bracket in my opinion, with Kansas, UCLA, and Gonzaga, and even a tough UConn team. But I'm kind of this is the one I was like kind of going back and forth between really the three teams because I could make a case for all three of them going in. But I was going between UCLA and Kansas, but because UCLA is down Jalen Clark, who got hurt in the Pac-12 tournament, I thought is huge. It's a huge loss for them. Kind of that combo guard that they need. I probably would have picked them to be in the Final Four if he was healthy, but because he's not, I'm gonna pick the defending champs in the Kansas Jayhawks. I think they have senior leadership in Jalen Wilson, who's kind of taken on that Ochai Abaji role, who was the senior guard last year that won the national title. So they've got that moxie. They got a young freshman, Grady Dick, who's got a lot of talent there. I think he's going to be an NBA prospect at some point. So I got 3 number 1 seeds and the Duke Blue Devils as a 5 seed as my most confident Final Four.
I like it, but I hate to tell you, they're playing Oral Roberts in the first round.
That's the tough one.
Because we all know this
Mm-hmm.
Oral Roberts, the spoiler, right? So I guess we'll move on to that'll transition us to our next topic I want to bring up here. Cinderella team, maybe, or kind of lower seeded team that you think is gonna make a run. If you have more than one, that's fine. Just kind of curious who your upsets or Cinderellas of this tournament could turn out to be.
Well, honestly, you just named one of them. It would not surprise me at all. I know I picked Duke to go to the Final Four, but it would not surprise me if they lost to Oral Roberts. I just think they have that charisma. Obviously, they've been there a couple years ago with that Cinderella run, and they have their guy still, Max Abesmith. When they went to the tournament the first time, I think he was a sophomore, and I think he led the NCAA in scoring. So the dude is legit. He's small, but he's going to be a handful for Jeremy Roach to guard. And I think they play so fast, and especially with Duke, right? They play a lot of with 2 bigs with Derek Lively and Filipowski. So if they start running and gunning and they hit their threes, Duke is going to be in trouble. And I think Oral Roberts can give, Duke obviously a lot of trouble. Assuming if they win that game, they'll probably play Tennessee. I think they could beat Tennessee as well. So wouldn't be surprising if they go back to the Sweet 16 at all. But I'm also going to say, I wouldn't say it's a Cinderella team, but Oral Roberts would probably be my big Cinderella team as a double-digit seed. But a team that's kind of sliding under the radar to me is Creighton. They're a 6 seed in the South region, but I think they've got a lot of guys that can score the basketball. They have a big man that kind of clogs the paint inside. They got Nemhard back from injury last year. So it wouldn't surprise me if Creighton, who's a team that's all about scoring to me, with the big man inside and Kalkbrenner, I could easily see them. They could knock off Arizona to me in the Sweet 16. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them in the Elite Eight. They're that good on paper. So those are my 2 teams to watch out for. But yeah, Oral Roberts, Duke, why they would do that for ratings. They would.
Yeah, gotta get those first round ratings in somehow. I don't know. I'm just gonna kind of do a little bit of this. Yeah, when I pick my brackets, just gonna
Just do the random, press the random button, and then it'll fill out your bracket for you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, might end up doing that, and we'll see how it goes from there. But before we transition off basketball, Matt, we have to talk about our 2 teams that we have in the women's tournament.
Yes.
So
our school made it.
We have Portland, University of Portland women's basketball team back again. I believe it's their second time in the past 3 years that they won the Big West. Where are they big?
WCC.
Sorry, WCC, West Coast Conference, of course. So they ended up, winning, and they are the 12th seed. They get number 5 Oklahoma. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen too many of their games, but regardless, I will be cheering them on. And yeah, hopefully they can make a splash, maybe upset, because that 12-5
Hey,
upset
12-5, that's the perfect upset,
that's the
man.
dream upset right there, right? Kind of keeps it close. So, they've been there. This coaching staff has experience, and they've been there before, and now maybe this is the year that Portland is kind of the Cinderella in that. And if it's not Portland, we can get transition to our other team.
I'm
Our
a little more
home
confident in Portland, to be
yeah.
honest.
A little bit more confident in Portland, but we transition to our home state University of Hawaii. The Wahine basketball team, they were able to win the Big West uh right against UC, I believe it was UC Santa Barbara, right?
It was Santa Barbara, yeah.
So they kind of got revenge, right? Uh for the men's side, I guess you could say. And so yeah, it'll be interesting because they get to play LSU, who is the 3 seed. A little bit tougher matchup, but we are back to back now in the Big West. So maybe, it's kind of same thing. We have a little bit more experience, can kind of play off of that a little bit more. I don't know, um, how the LSU team is. I'm gonna assume they're pretty good, but hey, it's March. Anything can happen, right? So
LSU, I'll say this, they have 2 losses on the season. So they're legit. And I don't know her name, but I think they have the SEC Player of the Year. I think. So they're in for a lot. And the junk thing about the women's tournament is the higher seeds in those first 2 rounds, they get to play at their home court. So they're basically playing a road game at LSU. Unlike the men's where you play in more of a geographical region, but you're not playing in the opponent's home gym, you could say. So a little bit of an advantage for the higher seeds in the women's bracket. And obviously, tough to be UH, be an underdog, but like you said, it's March. We've seen crazy things happen. What if they both win? That would be
that'd be
crazy.
amazing. I would love to see
Just
them
win
both
one. That
win.
would be
If Yeah, that would be amazing. Okay, well, you know what, Matt? That was a lot of basketball and football and stuff. So let's get to some baseball because now we're really in the full swing of the World Baseball Classic. We already have 2 I guess pools, you could say, are already wrapped up play, right? So in pool A, we have Cuba and Italy coming out of pool A. And that was a pretty exciting
shocking.
pool. Those guys were all, pretty close. Um so we got those 2 moving on, and then we have Japan and Australia. Australia, kind of the shocker, right? Making it in
Mhm.
over Korea. I think Korea was kind of the second favorite in that group, but Japan going 4-0. Yeah, look pretty good. And on the USA pool, they are 2-1 now, leading the pool. We'll have to see how it is after the rest of the games play out. I'm feeling pretty confident. Um, and then of course, we got Venezuela kind of shocking everyone in that loaded pool D with Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. But since we are in the US of A, let's start there with this team. Kind of got off to a slow start at first and caught up to them in that second game. Like we said, their pitching not as
It's their
strong
Achilles heel. Yep.
as other teams like Japan's pitching staff, I would say so far. Yeah, good luck everybody with that pitching staff. But like I said, was a little concerned. We took the loss against Mexico, right? And luckily we were able to squeak out that Great Britain win. But I am feeling much more confident now after today's victory. I think it was, at least from what the highlights that I saw from the first 2, everyone is kind of wanted to be the guy, I think, a little bit. And I think it's kind of natural, right? Whenever you have super teams or dream teams, it takes a while for guys to really come together as a team. But that first inning we saw today, it's just about guys getting on, right, and let the next guy up kind of do their job. And we had that 9-run first inning today against Canada, who had been looking pretty good in their first game as well. So, I'm not that worried. I still am a little worried about the pitching, but overall, getting out of the pool, sitting at 2-1, I like our chances, and I think we're gonna hit our way to the next round.
Oh, that's the only way we're gonna advance. We can't rely on the pitching. But I'm with you. I was a little worried, especially after that Mexico loss. I wasn't sure how they're gonna respond because there's a lot of pressure now. I mean, take out today's game, you're 1-1. You're obviously the favorite in the pool, and you can't. Okay, I would say that pool where everyone went 2-2, that's like an exception. You're not gonna see that a lot in a WBC. So you got to go 3-1 to at least advance. So two must-win games. They got one against Canada, which was huge, who was undefeated at 1-0. So a huge win. Nice to actually see the big bats kind of wake up. Mookie Betts kind of contributed. Mike Trout finally got in the hit column with the home run. I think Trey Turner finally got going a little bit. So the guys were getting their swings back. I think the only guy that's been really hitting was Arenado, he's just on a tear this
He's on
WBC
fire right now.
But yeah, US, at least they control their destiny to advance. They win against Colombia they don't play tomorrow, so Wednesday, they'll advance. But not necessarily win the pool because Mexico did beat them. So I think if Mexico wins their rest of the games, they're gonna get the top seed. But the thing that I'm worried about because I'm kind of looking ahead because the US better win, let me tell you that. But because the US right now, we have to assume that Mexico is going to win because I think they do play Great Britain still, so they have a chance to control their own destiny. So with the way the seeds match up, the US might end up getting the runner up in the pool, which means they could be playing Venezuela,
Yeah,
who
we're either
looks like the
playing
team.
Venezuela, the DR, or Puerto Rico, I believe.
But I think the thing obviously the DR is scary, but with the way Venezuela is playing, I think with the way they're hitting is what scares me, is because the US, we all know their pitching is not the strength, and that Venezuelan lineup is on a tear right now. You don't want to see Altuve, Acuna, Luis Ariz, the batting title champ in the AL, Salvi at cleanup. You got Jimenez, an all-star second baseman playing short. Gleyber Torres is on that team. Santander. I mean, they're loaded. So I'm a little scared if I'm the US playing them. And they got Pablo Lopez and Martin Perez. So tough arms to face, but I guess it's baseball. You just gotta advance in the pool. That's the first step. So
Now, I
they
mean,
just
I gotta
gotta take
ask you
care.
though, Matt. Out of the 3 teams, which is the team that's not gonna make it at this point? I
In Pool D,
in Pool D, yeah.
I think it's safe to say Venezuela's going to advance because they did beat the top two dogs in the division. So I do see them sweeping. Whew, Puerto Rico and the DR, that's going to be a great game. It's hard to pick against the DR. I still think they're going to be the team to beat at the end. They- they're just too complete to me. I think Puerto Rico is missing a little bit of firepower that they had. Obviously, the year that we got to see them play in the last WBC, right? Yachty's not playing anymore. He's coaching. Carlos Correa's not playing this year, so they're missing some pieces, I think. But that DR team is just on paper. It's just so hard to pick against them. How do you not? That is an all-star team on the field all around, from the batters, the fielding, the pitching. They're loaded. So It's hard to pick, so I gotta pick the DR to advance.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, it's. I mean, Puerto Rico's got a good team too. It's just, man.
They do. It's just the brackets. I don't know how it fell that way. They should have threw one of them in the US bracket.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll have to see there. It'll be pretty interesting, but can't just brush over how dominant Japan has looked either, right? They went 4-0 in their pool play, and they look so far to me. Maybe it's a little hard because you can question kind of the strength of their opponents, maybe
Mhm.
compared to the rest of the pools. But at least what we've seen so far, right? Combination of pitching and hitting, they look like the most complete team to me. And it's crazy when Yu Darvish is not one of their top pitchers on the team, right? Whenever Yu is not even a top three guy, that's saying something about that roster, right? Obviously you got Shohei, and then they got the two young pitchers, I believe Sasaki
That dude is
and
electric. Oh my goodness.
Takahashi, I think is the other young guy, the two young guys. But yeah, Roki Sasaki, whenever he comes to the big leagues, there will be a
Whew.
bidding
The
war for
Yankees
him.
better getting that check
He
ready.
he is gonna bring a bidding war himself, man. Yeah, his stuff is electric, and you know, probably. I mean, his fastball looks just as good as Shohei's. Honestly,
Looks
it's
better to
crazy.
me.
It just there's so much like live.
It's a
It's so
effortless
lively.
102.
Yeah, and he's not as big as Shohei either, right? He's a little
No.
skinnier. Um, it's crazy to me. But yeah, we can't ignore Lars Nootbaar, of course. Kind of he's the new superstar in Japan. Um, yeah, I think he's been kind of a standout guy for him for Team Japan, I should say. And happy for him because kind of a unsung guy on the Cardinals, but he gets to kind of be one of the guys in Japan, and he's just been hitting really well as their leadoff guy, making great plays in the defense at center field as well. So good for Lars. I just love the name Lars Nootbaar. I think it's
Yeah,
just
that's a good
like
name.
an all-time name as well. It's so easy to like remember that name. And if they do well in Japan, he's gonna be, I mean, his this is only helping him in my opinion. Like his merch, his advertising in Japan after this, even after just his pool play, he's gonna make a lot of money in Japan off of how he's played so far. And if he continues it even more, uh, we know how well the Japanese fans kind of travel to see Shohei and when Ichiro was playing, right? And hey, Lars, you can get yourself a whole new fan base, man. So if he keeps
They
playing
get-
like that, yeah, it'll be really, really good for him, I think.
He's gonna get all the Japanese people going to St. Louis now.
Crazy. It'll be in
In
the
the
middle of
Midwest.
in the Midwest watching Lars Nootbaar play. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, I think other than that though, that's pretty good. I didn't really watch too much of the Pool A play, Matt. Did you want to say anything about that one?
I'm just shocked that the Netherlands didn't make it. I thought they made the semifinals the last WBC, so I was kind of expecting them to advance, but yeah, with the tiebreakers not going their way, yeah, tough one for them, especially with Xander Bogarts being kind of the star of that team. Obviously, you want to see him on the big stage, so that's probably the shocker out of that pool to me.
All right. Well, sounds good. Yeah, you just got to be worried about the Red Sox guy, right? From the Chinese Taipei team. That guy looked pretty good. Uh,
Nah, ain't scared of no Red Sox guys. Let's be real.
okay, yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, this is a longer pod, probably the longest pod we've had in a while, but
Hmm.
we had a lot to talk about, right? So had to be done. But Matt, why don't you round us out here with our sports fact of the day?
All right, March 13th. So we'll take it back to last year. Tom Brady announced he was coming back to football after retiring. to play one more year, and we all know
Alright.
the rest of that story. So happy 1 year anniversary of unretirement, Tom.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thanks everyone. It was a good pod. Stick around for next week's one, and yeah, we'll see you guys soon.